What's up, all my Dorks, Nerds, Geeks, and Gamers? It's your host, Ghost here, and you're watching a brand new episode of Dorks in Movie Minute. Today we're going to continue on with our discussion and review of Peacemaker, the complete series. We are in episode 7 and 8. Episode 7 entitled Stop Dragging My Heart Around. This episode is a nice continuation of what happened last week with his father getting the gang together and basically saying, hey, we're going to kill Peacemaker. And he's my own son, so I'm going to have to do this or whatever. And also getting a little bit more of that flashback between him and his brother and his father, and kind of the family dynamic that Peacemaker has without the team, just this personal issues that he has as a hero and as a character as a whole. So we're hopping right into that. Like I said, we get the flashback right off the top. We find out about Peacemaker killing his brother, which I believe we talked about last episode, but it actually happens in this episode. We get Peacemaker and Vigilante leaving the compound, and John, who goes with them in the van. So basically, it's them trying to find this feeding area where there's this sacred cow they're looking for that Myrn tells them about before he ends up getting killed later on in this episode. But basically, it shows that Myrn is basically telling the team what to look for is this this cow. He also warns them that if they don't catch this cow in time, they are building a teleporter and that they will not have another chance at all to stop this, and that if they fail, the invasion wins, and that's it. That's the end of the story. So he basically tells them this. The police end up surrounding them because Locke and the police are now butterflies as well. They end up killing Myrn, and Locke ends up taking Myrn out of his body and just crushing him like he would any other bug, and throws him back on the ground. That's when Hardcore and Waller's daughter go into the apartment, have a conversation with the butterfly version of Myrn, who tells them all these things, and then they go on search of Vigilante and Peacemaker and John, who are kind of on their own in the van, unaware that Peacemaker's father is coming after them. And it starts off right away with Peacemaker's dad coming in the, I don't want to say the wrong thing, the White Dragon costume or the Grand Dragon costume, whatever it's called, with the horns and the Iron Man suit almost sort of looking thing. He hits the side of the van, they end up crashing, fight ensues, Peacemaker and Vigilante end up losing this fight. Not on purpose, but it's because Vigilante turns to a last-ditch effort with all these grenades, and he blows himself up and all the enemies as well. Which then eventually leads to this big chase around the woods, Vigilante being injured, Peacemaker getting tracked by the helmets, so he ends up putting the helmets in the car. Vigilante ends up stealing that car and driving it back to Peacemaker, thus leading everything back full circle by the end of the episode. Very, very funny, very comedic, and it works 100% with the team and how they're all screwing up in their own ways, which adds up to one huge screw up. We then get the fight with Peacemaker and his father, with Eagly getting a little bit of the action, Vigilante getting in on the action as well. But Peacemaker coming out on top and finally, getting the gun, getting the upper hand, and pulling the trigger and killing his father, and that really leads to a lot of emotional stress as a character for Peacemaker. He starts to see these visions of his dead dad in the next episode, and I think that's going to be a larger role that we're going to see Peacemaker's character go through in Season 2 or possibly Season 3 or whatever, how long they want to keep going with this. But yeah, basically we get the fight between them. He ends up killing his dad. We also have Judo Master in this episode, which makes no sense at all why he's in here, because he doesn't show up again until the very last episode at the very end. But Judo Master's at this gas station, and these guys are messing with him or whatever. He ends up beating them up in the end and kind of going off towards the barn at the very end of the last episode before we see him again. But yeah, once again, a great episode with Peacemaker and his father and everything going on there. The way that they have the fight scene, the action scenes, and the emotional scenes all tied together, it works really well. And the alien invasion and everything else working to expand the threat of the series, to make this a worldwide threat, and to make this something that the team has to stop, or there will be trouble brewing. The very last shot of this episode is the giant space cow. We see this worm-like creature who is suspended above the ceiling, kaiju-sized, and it's just spitting out this goo that the butterflies are using to eat, and that's their food source. But yeah, so a very strong episode. I give episode 7, Stop Dragging My Heart Around, a 10 out of 10, which is going to be a very nice, strong ending that we're going to see continued on in this very last episode, episode 8. It's Cow or Never. So like I said, we get the the team basically being told that they have one chance to do this, so all the pressure's on the team. Waller's daughter basically calls Waller and says, hey, maybe you want to call the Justice League, they might be able to help us in this. And Waller's like, well, I'll do what I can, but for now you have to do what you can to stop this threat. So she basically Waller puts Hardcore in charge of the team. The team basically have this plan to take the sonic boom helmet, drop it on the barn, and explode everything. But in hilarious fashion, Eagle takes it up in the air and drops it in some random spot in the woods. So now the team has to go out and find the helmet and put it in the right spot, find a way into the barn to infiltrate the barn. And the way they do it is they end up sending John in because he's the most kind of boring character of them all. He can play off as being a butterfly. So they send John in with the helmet. He ends up getting in. And before we even mention that, like I said, Peacemaker is still having these visions of his dead dad. He starts to see him in the woods and all this other things, and it's affecting his thoughts and how he can accomplish his mission. But John ends up getting in there, takes this bag of helmets in. He gets all the way in. There's a few spots where he may be compromised, he may not be compromised, and they play off that expectation a little bit. But he ends up getting in and out. He drops the bag. Eventually, he does get caught coming out of the building after he's already dropped the bag. Waller's daughter ends up detonating the bag, and that sets everyone off that John does not belong here. Big fight ensues. You have Vigilante, Hardcore, Waller's daughter, John, Peacemaker, all of them going in this wild fight, just guns a-blazing, everything, amazing action sequences. They're all fighting. They all end up losing, I think just for tension's sake for the most part, because we know they're not going to die. But they really push the Hardcore injuries on her. To really make you feel like she may die in this episode. But she stays alive, and they keep it for the emotional pull. But they end up losing pretty bad besides Peacemaker and Waller's daughter, who end up getting into the bunker. They confront the small Asian cop and the large guy cop. They end up having a fight. She tries to convince Peacemaker that maybe this is the wrong decision to pull the plug on this, because maybe the butterflies deserve life, and maybe he's making the wrong decision in this. And he decides, no, he's making the right decision. Waller's daughter puts on the torpedo helmet and shoots through the sacred cow, destroying its insides, thus destroying the food source before it can get teleported and everything else. And then that's when Peacemaker ends up pulling out his gun and killing the detective who is turned into a butterfly, thus ending the whole threat. And the team end up going back home and going their own separate ways after celebrating and having a good camaraderie moment between everybody that we've been waiting for this whole season. But yeah, it works really well. Great action scenes. I love the space cow. I love the space aspect. This series could only be done by James Gunn because I think his mind is so crazy enough to really make it work. And he's the only one that I think could have made a character like Peacemaker work on the small screen. And so I'm very, very happy with what we got. And I cannot wait to see what they do with future episodes of this series. So until next time, guys, I've been your host, Ghost. Make sure you like, subscribe, or share, and adios.